Very good evening and a warm welcome to Man Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. And a warm welcome to the final week of live tastings for 2020, this bizarre, crazy, bipolar, daft, infuriating year that has been 2020 is almost at an end. And so our live tastings will come to a conclusion this coming Thursday, a very special edition of which I shall tell you more just a little later. But we get wrapped up with our second last one of the year with a couple of really great wine brands. One of them is incredibly old. It's got a long, rich heritage, and it is a favorite amongst many South African wine drinkers. And there's a terrific story, many terrific stories behind that particular wine. The other is far newer. In fact, it's barely a couple of years old. It's one of the newest wine labels in South Africa and I suppose Zimbabwe, but it is also one of the most exciting. So we're going to both ends of the chronological spectrum as we run through our wine for today, and I am duly excited. Now, the wine that is South African and also Zimbabwean comes from the hand of a good friend of mine, a fellow Zimbabwean. Although I was born in Northern Ireland, I grew up in Zimbabwe and still feel it's a big part of who I am. And so to see some Zimbabwean wine, as this sort of is, makes me very happy indeed. Tinashe Nyamudoka was the head sommelier at the Test Kitchen, amongst many other roles he held over the years, but has now bid the Test Kitchen farewell. A big call to move into, amongst other things, the making of his own wine. It is called Kumusha, the Xitsonga word from Zimbabwe, which means your home or your roots. It's a word with great meaning, and the wine has great meaning to Tinashe. And so we'll chat to him about that wine story and taste a couple of his wines. But we start with wine that is just a little older. In fact, it's 300 years old this year or thereabouts, and it is wine that comes from Durbanville. It's a winery that makes superb Sauvignon Blanc, but that is certainly not the only varietal for which de Grendel is famous. We have with us a couple of superstars from the de Grendel outfit. One of them is Righard and the other is Morgan. Guys, a very good evening. A warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, and a warm welcome to a label that's got such a rich history. Righard, did I have that right? Are you guys 300 years old?
Yes, Dan, thank you for having me. And for us, yes, 300 years. We certainly picked a bad year to celebrate 300 years of heritage. We had all sorts of things planned for this year with big garden parties to celebrate, but we are now unfortunately reduced to Zoom tastings. But nevertheless, it is a family and a farm with a very rich history, and especially in Cape Town itself.
Give us a snapshot of that history. I know wrapping up 300 years in a minute or two is not terribly easy, but go back, the person who kicked it off, and the journey through to the owners today.
Maybe I should just fast forward all the way to where the Graaf family got involved. Sir David Graaf, the first baronet, bought the property in 1891, and at that stage he was looking for drier ground to stable his Arab horses, which at the time developed a cough, and a vet suggested find drier ground for it. So he came about this farm, because at that stage he was stabling them near the Kirstenbosch area with a very high rainfall. So he trekked further north and got to de Grendel. And de Grendel is the Dutch word for the latch. And then the origins of that word meaning it's due to our location. And we literally situated on the hillside, the Tygerberg Hill, with solid ground, and it was easier for merchants with ox wagons trekking over this farm than as opposed to the thickest sandy soils surrounding us, the Cape Flats area. So this became the latch that opened up the harbour to the inland. Then we are now on the fourth generation of baronets on the property, which is currently Sir de Villiers Graaf. His father, Sir David, the third baronet, was the one that really started the wine side of the business, and it's also the gentleman that appointed me back, goodness, it's February, almost 16 years ago, when there was literally just a hole in the ground and the foundation was barely dug, and he then said to me, I promise you there's more coming, and there certainly was. I think back then, Charles Hopkins was already involved. He was cellar master winemaker at Grendel in Franschhoek, and he purchased some of the Grendel grapes, which was then first planted in 2000. So in 2004 was the first crop that he bought from the Grendel, and as a winemaking service made the first wines at Grendel. So that's why I thought the two wines that we should try today is from the original three that was made, which is our Sauvignon Blanc Merlot, and the other one we're not featuring tonight is the Shiraz. So these two wines still represent the biggest chunk of our production, and but I'm sure my dear colleague Morgan will tell you more in detail about those wines.
Well, let's look ahead, not just to these wines specifically, but to wines as a whole. And Morgan, it's a rich history, as Righard has underscored, but it's not a history that would have got to where the Grendel is now if it wasn't for some pretty good wine. What is it for you that sets the Grendel apart? What is it that makes the terroir, the area, the Grendel space so successful and has allowed 300 years to flourish?
Okay, thank you, Dan, for having me. Like Righard mentioned, we're on the Tygerberg hills, and we have a 180-degree view of the Atlantic Ocean, and that means we get some cool breezes during the night and some warm daytime temperatures. Today we're doing a Sauvignon Blanc and a Merlot, and the Sauvignon Blanc for acidities and great flavors, and the same with the Merlot for good color and structure. You need that cool temperatures and warmer day temperatures. I think it's not only the terroir, it's also the marketing of the Grendel and the brand and the family that all comes together and form this great wine or this great brand.
You're a very important part of that family, Morgan. Left Riversdale, now in Durbanville, and you're working alongside somebody that Righard has already referred to. Charles Hopkins is, I think, fair to say, one of the great modern winemakers of South Africa. What's the experience been like working alongside somebody like that and having this day-to-day teacher as your own wine education grows?
Then you can, as you know, you can speak to Charles for hours and hours, and he'll take something from the soil to the vines that are important to us, straight into the tanks and even fermentation and everything, and take it from there into marketing and how you market the wine and everything. I think I have a privilege to pick a brain like that every day and to talk to him and ask a lot of questions. Like all of you know, Charles, he's all about mentoring young guys like me or young winemakers like me. And like I can say, you can only be a sponge in this industry and with him and absorb everything he teaches you. And I always try to bring something new to the table.
Well, it's a terrific team. You've had a lot of success already, particularly with the continuing story, Righard, that is Sauvignon Blanc in the Durbanville area. Just before we taste the first of our two wines, which is a Sauvignon Blanc, the growth of Durbanville Hills as a real home of Sauvignon Blanc in South Africa. I think it's been a savvy combination of great marketing on the back of extremely good wine. It's an area that you will have followed very, very closely. What's been the key to this rise? And I think beyond just South Africa, a lot of people in the world now knowing Durbanville Hills as somewhere where you get world-class Sauvignon Blanc.
I think that was a unified theme for us in the Valley, is to hang our hat on Sauvignon Blanc as a varietal. And for that success, you need to stand together and talk the talk and promote the varietal. We as a Valley united around it, and we are again picking up those leads, and we're going to revive our Valley again and take that even further. But Sauvignon Blanc as a varietal, I mean, that's widely consumed. And I think, especially in South Africa, it's definitely the taste profile, the fact that it's so, let's call it in your face. It's right there. When you stick your nose into it, it talks to you. And it's that freshness. And that's what appeals to people. And luckily, that's our strong point, and that does make up a big chunk of our production. We do have two styles of Sauvignon, but maybe Morgan can elaborate on that as well.
All right. Well, before we go into that, we've got a number of people watching. Daryl Balfour is on YouTube at the moment. Good evening, all. Love the Grendel wines. I'm not sure there's a South African wine Daryl Balfour hasn't tried. He drinks far more wine than I do and does so expertly. Daryl, great to have you on the show. Grant Sauls, also over on YouTube. Grendel have some awesome wines. I really enjoy the Merlot and Sir David Graff Cape Town 2014. Well, that Merlot is coming up in just a few minutes. And then Skulk Stapelberg, who very rarely talks about anything other than Pinotage, but in this case is giving a sweeping thumbs up. Durbanville, very underrated. Great farms all around. Grendel is fantastic. Cheers. Well, cheers to you, Skulk, and cheers to the Grendel team for being part of us today. Morgan, introduce us to this Sauvignon Blanc, which is looking at me out of the glass and screaming, please drink me down. I'm feeling lonely.
Yeah, so that it's our bread and butter, if you can think about this. It's 31% of our total production at the Grendel, and our oldest vines are 18 years old. So we started planting vines in 2000. And yeah, so we try to create different styles of Sauvignon Blanc. You usually get 5 styles. You get esters, which are more your fermentation styles, and then you get thiols, which are more your passion fruit and your citrus. Then you get toxopyrazine that are more your grainer styles of flavors, and then you get wooded, and then you get also these natural flavors, these tending to be more phenolic. So we create 2 styles at the Grendel. So we create the Grendel label that are more your tropical flavors that if you put your nose into a basket of fruit. And then it also has some nice grain flavors. The success with this, like I mentioned previously, is our cooler climate, if I can call it that. The breezes from the Atlantic Ocean that cools down the vineyards, that gives you this fresh acidity. And this also tends to give you more flavors. So yeah, Sauvignon Blanc is more, you get your flavors with fermentation. When you smell it at first, when it's juice, it's more this cold tea. But then while it's fermenting, it develops more these flavors like your esters and your thiols. So this label we created for people that comes into the Grendel that picks up the glass, are fairly new to wine, but also people that drink wine regularly. So yeah, this is a wine made for any palate. Like you guys mentioned, the fruit just jumps out of the glass. When you taste this, you get this nice crisp acidity, and yeah, that's all natural acidity because of our cooler climate, which preserves this acidity.
It can be a very divisive grape, this, Morgan, can't it? Because you can give exactly the same Sauvignon Blanc to 2 people, and one person will absolutely love it, and the other will politely say they need to go to the bathroom, and you won't see them again that evening. What sort of challenge does that then give you as a winemaker to strike either a balance, as I think you have here, or to just throw your lot in with a particular style and say, well, we know some people will like this, but not everyone?
Yeah, like when I speak to some people and I tell them this is the most consumed variety in South Africa, they sometimes, because like you mentioned, sometimes the acidity is so powerful that people don't like it. But I think with this style, we went for everyone's palate. It's soft, it's easy drinking, it's nice. You can like, it's not, I don't know if it's summer yet because it's raining outside, we have misty weather, but it's a nice summer wine. But then you get these acidic wines, but it's balanced with wood. And we also have these wines in our range. But yeah, like you mentioned, this wine, we go for that where you can drink more than 2 glasses of this wine. Yeah.
And we won't specify the size of the glass, Morgan. That's completely down to the person drinking. The marketing side of this, where you've got these different styles. I think Dimmersdal have got 82 different Sauvignon Blancs, and they all speak to so many different styles and intonations. How challenging is it from that perspective to create not just an image of who you are as a Sauvignon Blanc producer, but let people in the market know that Sauvignon Blanc A delivers here, B there, and C there?
Yeah, this is the one we're tasting here is the one we started off with. So this is the one that laid the foundation, and that's probably the better known one. and sort of, as Morgan mentioned, more tailor-made for a broader palate and appealing to a wider spectrum of Sauvignon drinkers. Later, we introduced a wine called Kumusha Sauvignon Blanc, which does lean more towards the greener notes, the pyrazine notes, which is a bit more of an acquired taste. So that's at a higher price point. And in the last, I don't want to lie, 3-4 years, we added a wooded component to it as well, which even made it even more serious. So definitely two schools who will enjoy this. I always, Morgan mentioned, of this one you can enjoy more than one glass. For me, I always say the Kumusha is the one where I can manage 2 glasses with food. This one, happily a bottle, depending on what our dear president tells us tonight.
We're trying not to think too much about that, Righard. Fingers are as firmly crossed as they've ever been. Okay, so some wonderful Sauvignon Blanc, and that's not unexpected. A from Durbanville and B from de Grendel, both great reputations for Sauvignon Blanc. It's the red that I'm particularly interested in trying, though, today, because one of the challenges when you are so well known for a particular varietal is ensuring that the world knows that you can make other wine that's really good as well. And a reminder that you do, we've already had Grant Sauls mention the Merlot, Daryl Balfour back with us, Optiberg Pinot Noir 2017, a divine wine, one of the best in the Cape. So you've got a lot of people who are beyond just that Sauvignon Blanc. Let's move on to that second wine. Morgan, introduce us to the Merlot. What leads you to be able to make the Merlot that you clearly believe is a very special wine, and then what we get out of this particular one.
Okay, so then, I would love to start from the vineyards, or something that we do in the vineyards. Like you guys know, Merlot tends to be sometimes have this greener flavor. So in the vineyards before the beer gets soft or the beer is developed, we open the whole canopy around the bunch to break down these green flavors in the bunches. So this is why we get this plum, raspberry flavor Merlot. And in the cellar, we try not to work with Merlots that hard because of the thin skin it has. So we work soft with Merlot, and we give you this elegant wine, this wine that has some nice texture, but is more elegant. So we give it a lot of pump overs and all of that. And what is interesting, I had mentioned, this is one of our foundations, Sauvignon Blanc and Merlot. It's the second most consumed in South Africa at the moment. And in 2004, we made 400 cases. Today, we make 10,000 cases of 12, which are exceptional, in my opinion, growing a label like that and maintaining the quality in the wine. So yeah, we try not to work too hard with it in the cellar. We try to give it this elegant Merlot, perfumey Merlot. And yeah, like you can smell, it's nice perfumey with this nice plummy flavor to it.
I'll get your thoughts in a second, Righard. I must just tell you, though, Morgan, I've just finished off the last of the modest glass of the Sauvignon Blanc that I had. And there's such a wonderful softness to the wine, which for a 2020 is very welcome, because often there can still be that slightly abrasive note. That was a lovely wine. I'm about to try this. As I do that, I see Janet Sattere was privileged to live around the corner from these magnificent farms. So underrated. Janet, thank you for watching. I'd agree with you. It's a great part of the winemaking world. And then Melissa Sutherland, where were you, Melissa? We've been missing you. Love de Grendel, have celebrated many special birthdays at the fantastic restaurant with the iconic view of Table Mountain. Iconic views, but you did get distracted from the views pretty quickly by the quality of the wine, Righard, including this Merlot. Give us your thoughts on this particular wine.
Yeah, I mean, Merlot, it's as mentioned, key wine for us. We went through a bit of a brainstorming session around Merlot as a varietal. We saw a small decline in our sales, and we were sort of pulling it apart and asking the questions. And I think one of the challenges for us with Merlot is price point, and people don't always perceive Merlot as serious enough to pay a premium for it, which is sad, because I think from the word go, Charles always said, having worked a vintage or two in Saint-Emilion, he always said, well, surely we can make a serious Merlot in this country. And it's always been sort of a focus, and we, I believe, make a serious Merlot, and I would urge people to try it. I think there's always a perception that Merlot can be very light and iffy, but go out, go to Pick n Pay, and you'll find it on the shelf at a good price as well, and give it a go.
I think there's still just a slight legacy from Sideways and the anti-Merlot movie that sends Pinot Noir spiraling and Merlot tumbling, which is a terrible shame. But there are a number of Southern African estates. I think of people like Shannon out in Elgin championing Merlot, and here's another terrific example. A few more comments coming in. Melissa again, Optiberg Chardonnay was one of my all-time favorites. And then a recent guest on the show, the man behind Stark Conde, Rutger van Wyk. Let's go, Morgan, solid winemaker, solid guy. Well, let's go back to solid winemaker and solid guy. Morgan, it has been a big year for you, because not only are you ensuring that Charles doesn't get the wine wrong and doing a great job therein, but you've also been quite busy in terms of judging, because you were part of the Michelangelo panel this year, weren't you?
Yeah, yes.
What was that experience like?
Yeah, it's always interesting. Like I told you, you can learn from anyone in the industry. I think it was a great opportunity for me to learn from some different palates and some different tasters, and also giving my opinion of the wines. I think the more wines you taste, the better you get. So yeah, it was a great opportunity. I loved it. I think as the results showed, there were some awesome wines there.
While you're talking, I'm trying some more of this Merlot, and fruit is funneling into it so beautifully. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. Schalk Stapelberg, no surprises, reminding us that there is Pinotage around too in Durbanville. Mirandel comes to mind. I've got some old Mirandel Pinotage that needs some drinking. And also mentions the Cape Minstrel from Daria, which is fantastic. It all just reinforces the quality of wine in Durbanville. And it is wine, Righard, that we can get hold of in rather substantial quantities if we are lucky, because this month, if you're a member of the Pick n Pay Wine Club and you buy a bottle, any bottle of the Grendel wine at Pick n Pay, there's a fabulous prize on offer, isn't there?
Yes, you can win over 5,000 rands worth of Grendel wine. So that should be you be able to stock up on your favorites there. So I do encourage you to go for it. As I said, buy any of those and stand the chance.
Indeed. Of course, you have to be a member of the Pick n Pay Wine Club, which is absolutely free and easy to do. Just send that smart shopper number of yours to 36775. You'll be a member of the club if you aren't already. One bottle of De Grendel and a whole pile of wine will be coming your way. Guys, just before I let you go, and it's been an absolute pleasure having both of you with us, I'd like to throw forward to what is a slightly murky crystal ball, given the nature of 2020. You're 300 years in, you move on to 301 and start the next 300 next year. Morgan, what's exciting you about next year, both about the wine world as a whole and about De Grendel in particular?
Dan, we usually as winemakers, we learn out of I don't want to say struggle, but out of something like the virus now. So we learn out of this. I think we're adapting to it very well. I think we will take all these things forward and take it over to next year. Like I wasn't used to giving tastings on Zoom or TeamViewer or online, and now I can do it easily. I think we adapt well. We learn from the past, we learn from the mistakes. I'm looking forward to the next harvest. It's going to be earlier this year, but I think there's a great harvest laying in front of us. There's obstacles in front of us also, but I think it's a challenge looking forward to and learning from that.
I heard from the commercial perspective some difficult stories to read this morning in the media. 300 million litres of wine left over, which that's like a month worth of Ken Forrester's consumption. So we've got a lot to get through there. There are a lot of things we can look at that make us feel the wine industry's got some challenges. Put a smile on our face. What are we being positive? What are we being upbeat about? What's putting a spring in our step wine-wise for 2021?
It doesn't help to go sit and cry about things. It's, as Morgan mentioned, adapt, find new ways of approaching the market. Literally, it's adapt or die. For us, obviously, the sad thing in having a restaurant ourselves is that industry and how that is affected. Thankfully, through this, our international sales picked up very nicely, and as well as our direct sales that really saved us. But it's the restaurant trade out there, and we engaged in two activities where we try and those restaurant rescue efforts, where we throw our full support behind restaurants and trying to keep them afloat. And I think looking at 2021, there'll be more support needed out there. So again, if as consumers, if we can support and go support local, go to your local diner, support them, have a meal if you can, and a glass of wine, hopefully.
I have to pass on some high praise from the owner of Denunka restaurant. I played golf with him up in Johannesburg this morning, and he said that he can't believe how your restaurant at the Grendel hasn't been in the Eat Out top 10 over the last few years. So you got a lot of guys in the industry giving you big thumbs up. So great food and great wine. Reginald Peckmeyer joining us from Cheetah Plains at Pinsabi Sands. Great wines, great history, great winemakers. The unforgettable De Grendel estate, always and forever. And Ines Smith, who is to Shannon Blanc what Skalk Stapelberg is to Pinotage. It'll be amiss of me by not mentioning some great Shannon from the Durbanville terroir, Spear and Durbanville Hills to mention too. Also, Altijd Karacht and Groot Fazant Graal. Always flying that flag for Shannon, and wonderfully so. No Shannon on the show today, but we have had some terrific Sauvignon and some really lovely Merlot. And I echo Righard's not plea, but his strong recommendation to give Merlot a bit more of a chance, because as is evidenced by this particular one from De Grendel, it is a grape that offers a lot more reward than people might sometimes expect. Guys, thank you both very much. It's been a delight having you both with us. Enjoy your festive break, and as much as you get one, best of luck with the 2021 harvest, and we look forward to having you back up on, and possibly Morgan, your assistant Charles, on the show as well in due course.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Much appreciated.
There we go. Theron and Morgan Steyn from De Grendel, 300 years old. You can see, and there's their Sauvignon Blanc, the 300 sticker on it. That's 3 centuries of wine heritage, and now in very, very good hands indeed. Right, 300 years. That's about 298 years or thereabouts older than our second wine label this evening. But while it is considerably younger, it is no less exciting, because the man behind it is one of the real movers and shakers of the South African wine world, even if he is Zimbabwean, which produces a huge chunk of our local wine experts. If I look at the number of top South African sommeliers, South African-based sommeliers who hail from north of the border. So let us bring him in. I think he's only arrived back from Zimbabwe today on a flying visit. Tinashe Maneru Sekuru.
Maskura Seiko.
Tazera Masverao. My fellow, we actually had a look at this. We had a look at the family tree, and there's an outside chance that we're third cousins. I think that's what we worked out, Tinashe.
Definitely.
Well, welcome back. You've just got back from Zimbabwe today, is that right?
Yeah, I was in Bulawayo for the weekend. Very lovely city, beautiful. Really excited about wines, and Kumusha wines in particular.
Which is fantastic, because to see wine opening up in a new market is brilliant, and especially for you being able to go home and help to develop the wine story. Because if I think back to when I was growing up in Zimbabwe, in the small provincial city of Marondera, with its one traffic light and generally slow pace of life, while my parents did drink wine, it was by and large came up from South Africa. It was mostly fairly entry-level wine, and with the exception of a bit of Makuyu, or if it was right at the end of the month and budgets were low, a bit of Green Valley, there wasn't really much to speak of. How do you see the growth of the wine culture in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, it's really developing, Dan. I think it's much to do with, with a lot of Zimbabweans had grown outside of the country. like me in particular, you end up in South Africa and get introduced into wine. And when I go back, obviously I'm not gonna leave wine, but I'm still gonna enjoy wine. So I think that's what's happening, especially in the African market. A lot of expatriates coming back home, bringing back the wine culture at home, and so it's much of a case of now they're also excited to taste good wines. And I think with past, they've been drinking the same wines because of big distributors having, so they're also getting tired of that and looking for new wines and new wine personalities or new regions as well. But it's really interesting how it's growing.
Now that leads us rather nicely to your own wine story and the fact that your wines are starting to gain a footprint back home, as they are in South Africa. We've told the story on Dan Really Likes Wine a couple of times. We've had you on the show. We've done the sommelier series. But I think for those people who don't know the Tinashe Nyamudoka story too well, just very briefly, give us a reminder of the guy who came south of the border knowing just about nothing about wine and is today one of the most respected voices on wine in South Africa.
Yeah, Dan, man, it's been what, almost a 12-year journey. I came to South Africa 2008, found work in a restaurant as just a lowly waiter, not even a waiter. I was a bastard, the person polishing cutlery. But I was fortunate that my first restaurant really ran a lovely wine program, so I just got hooked from then on. Then I moved on to the one and only around 2009. Very lovely hotel, big collection, obviously the profile of the guests, the restaurants. And I really had really good mentors back then, Eric Botter, Andre Becker, Ken Shimaya. So it was really, then I really got open to the world of wine. I spent 4 years working in Rubens and Nobu. Then I moved on to the Oyster Box Hotel in Mhlanga. I spent 1.5 years there eating lots of curry. Then the opportunity came to join Luke Dale Roberts at the Test Kitchen in 2015. And I feel that's where I really honed my skills and took my personality on. I understood my palate very much. And, working with one of the best chefs in the world, the exposure was just really good. And I really appreciated my time there. And that's where, I began the Kumusha story around late 2017. Luke Dale Roberts said, Tinashe, I think you need to find something for you to, which is interesting. So it started off as just a passion thing. So 2018, I released 1,200 bottles, which were quickly snapped by friends and family. But Luke had told me, if you're going to make a wine, it better work in the test kitchen, because if you fail to sell it anyway, you just sell it here. And now this is my 3rd year. It's grown exponentially. So from 1,200 bottles to start off with, end of this year, we've bottled in excess of 75,000 bottles.
It is an incredible story, and it's an interesting metamorphosis, because you've gone from sommelier in one of the most sought after jobs in the country to now into your own wine space. Answer me 2 questions, if you will, Tinashe. One, how difficult it was to make the decision to say goodbye to the test kitchen, which had done so much for you, and then also the motivation to really drive yourself into this new wine space and go beyond just the person who's making those recommendations over dinner.
Yeah, I have to be honest, Dan, it was a tough decision. I was part and parcel of the furniture at the test kitchen, and I really worked well with Luke Dale, who I really appreciate as a person on himself. So yeah, the shift wasn't really so comfortable. Especially, I missed the adrenaline of working on the restaurant floor. I missed the food. I just missed the energy. I missed the food and wine pairing. I missed meeting different people every day, every single night, like I used to at the test kitchen. So it's been tough to really win myself, but yeah, it had to come. And the motivation for me was, I've always been an ambitious guy. I spent 5 years at the test kitchen. I felt I'd done all I could. And, it's always like leaving space for the upcoming. I was at the test kitchen, the best sommelier job in the country. Then you kind of inspire these young guys, and, you tell them to go to the school to study, but then if you're not moving, then you never create space for them. So for me, it was a challenge to start something different and leave a position for someone else to fill up.
It is a position that is now where you've switched over to the wine one. How much are you involved in this wine as we now move over to your two wines? Are you part of the actual making process? Are you there on the cellar floor? Are you selecting the grapes? How far do you get involved?
So for me, I think the experience I use I'm not a celebrated winemaker. Probably the best title is a master blender. I respect the tradition of winemaking, and I think winemakers are mostly farmers, and I respect their craft. I get involved in some of the harvesting, and I know the vineyards and the wine farms I work with. I know the type of fruit they produce. So I leave the winemaking to, in this case, the Sauvignon Blanc to Wilma at Hermanus Pietersfontein. Attilo makes my red wines from Obstal. Two unique and very exciting wine regions I always wanted to put on the map, especially when I was at the test kitchen. I love those underrated wine regions producing good wine. So I usually jump in when it's time for blending. I taste through samples and barrels, and we go through the winemaking techniques that they use, the barrels, the tanks, and I come up with my blend of wine in terms of, I know what food is going to be eaten with. I know what the customers are going to be needing, and this experience is just purely using my experience of suggesting wines on the restaurant floor like I used to. So it's more in that process that I make my wines. So I'm a bit involved, very much involved all the way.
Well, let's go into the first of those wines, and this is your Sauvignon Blanc. I want to try this because it's not shown. Pronounce that word under the Sauvignon Blanc for me, Tinashe.
Sonderskloof. I'm not sure if I even got it right as well. So.
I'm not sure a watershed boy is in any position to advise you on the correct pronunciation. Yeah. It is your Sauvignon Blanc, and it is the Kumusha. Remind us the meaning of Kumusha and the choice of name, and then talk us through this particular Sauvignon Blanc.
So Kumusha is Shona word for your home, your roots, or your origins. And I've always wanted to honor, my culture, my origins. So that's why I named it Kumusha, and I always missed home. And I always try to drink wine and express it and talk it in different terms. I grew up being exposed in terms of fruits and aromas. So I never grew up with gooseberries and blackberries, but I grew up eating hute, matamba in Zimbabwe. So that's what I reference my wines with. In terms of the Sonderskloof, some of my wines are an inspiration of the wines I worked with at the test kitchen. And I remember tasting Trezan Bernard's wines, which were coming from the Sonderskloof, and I just fell in love with the region. And I used the wines pretty much in the test kitchen. So when I wanted to create a Sauvignon Blanc, I knew I couldn't get it from where I was getting my Obstal wines because they don't produce the best Sauvignon Blanc. But because, a friend of mine knew a friend who knew a friend, I got in touch with Willem, who said, you can give me some fruit from the Sonderskloof and Hermanus Pietersfontein farm. So I got the Sauvignon Blanc for me, which I love, tongue-splitting Sauvignon Blancs that razor sharp. This one is 90%, which is tank, and the 10% has been barrel matured with a bit of skin contact to add texture. So I think my wine philosophy is modeled around my time working with food and wine and working with wine pairing. So those are the elements I really look for into a wine.
Well, if you think back to the Hermanus Pietersfontein days of Barto Extern, you've got an area from which Sauvignon Blanc has a very strong heritage and a very different style to what we had a little earlier with the Grendel, that bolt of steel coming through it, but that little wooden inspired touch. It's a lovely, lovely Sauvignon Blanc. And I'm enjoying it. And I also love the Kumusha story. I remember towards the end of every year, just as South Africans head back to where their traditional homes are in Zimbabwe, it's always Tino and the Kumusha, end of the year, to our home, to where we're from. And you managed to translate a sense of home in Zimbabwe into your wine, and fine achievement. You've done it with wine number 1, heading over to wine number 2. And what I like about this, and I'm not sure how deliberate it is, but if you look at South Africa's wine history, and you probably go back a good few decades, there was a time when Cabernet Cinsault was such an integral part of the South African wine map, and we saw it fall away a bit. But over the last couple of years, I've started to see more of just these 2 varietals coming together. Now, how much is this you just liking them, and how much is it a reference to South Africa's wine past?
Yeah, it's got a reference to it, but for me, again, it was part in time during my time at the test kitchen. You know, the kind of food I was working with was really difficult to pair with the modern style or the old style reds, mostly Stellenbosch, which are quite bigger. So grape varieties which worked for me were either Cinsault, Pinot Noir, Grenache, or it would be old cabs or old Cinsaults, and that's where the cab Cinsault came into play. If you're drinking those old Chateau Libertas, it's mostly Cinsault and Cabernet which was there. So I remember I got a wine from Adam Mason, I think, who's got also some Zimbabwe blood in him as well. And he was doing the seriously old school, the Cabernet Cinsault, and I just fell in love with the blend. And I used it quite a lot in the test kitchen. So when I wanted to create a red wine, and I went to Ati at Obster Wine Farm, and he didn't have, I realized he had a Cinsault. He also had a Cab Sauv, and I told him, you know what, this is the type of wine I want to create. Can you please help me? So that's where the Cab Cinsault kind of came about. And I was just looking for a light but still appealing wine, which was really delicate, not about power but about elegance and finesse. And these are the wines I enjoy. You know, you can have a bottle. I love long, lazy lunches, especially on a Sunday. So I really want to enjoy a red wine, which is forceful but not really making me drowsy.
Now, there's so much to be said, especially when you're pairing wine with the kind of food that you'll often have somebody like Luc Del Robert serve up, where you do want that lightness. But if you just produce something like a Cinsault, it's probably going to be overwhelmed by quite a few dishes. Whereas add in that Cabernet Sauvignon, and suddenly it's got a bit of muscle to compete.
Exactly. That was the whole process, yeah.
All right. Well, it's it is a fabulous wine, and with due apology to the Zimbabwean wines my family grew up with, it's definitely a step forward from Mukuyu. So thank you for that, and that leads me back into our wines from Zimbabwe and the wine people from Zimbabwe. Because if I look at the sommeliers we have, and we look back to the sommelier series we did with Niederberg a little earlier this year, where we had everybody from Joseph at La Colombe to Gregory at the 12 Apostles. So many Zimbabweans involved in this space. Lovemore, who was at Koob's up here in Johannesburg. And now I saw you were involved with a Zimbabwean sommelier competition just in the last week or so. What is it about Zimbabweans and wine that seems to work so well?
I think it's the hospitality nature in us, and the way we love to communicate. And I think the way we understand ourselves as a people, you know, really down culturally. And, you know, wine as a cultural heritage. And I think most Zimbabweans really find it appealing, because whenever you get a cultural connection to anything, we find it very exciting. So I think that's why most Zimbabwean guys tend to whine about it. But again, most Zimbabweans are working in restaurants and get exposed to wine. And I have to say again, because, you know, we've paved the path, guys like me, Tongai, and Gregory Mutambe. So there's the whole aspiration part of it as well. And young guys are really taking it on.
And if you keep doing stuff like this, the South Africans are all under threat, Tinashe, because you're making some terrific wine, and that Cinsault Cab blend is just lovely. Before we let you go and recover from the jet lag of your trip back from Bulawayo, 2021, we asked a similar question to our De Grendel duo. Your thoughts for 2021? Can we be upbeat and positive about the wine industry, and what can we expect from Kumusha?
Yeah, definitely. We have to be, you know, the vines will always be producing wines. I think for me, it's just looking at different avenues where we can get the product to the people. I just feel, you know, the the mouths are still there. You know, people are still enjoying wine. And I only think the channels and the way we communicate about it and the way we get the wines to the people is really, really important. Like me as a sommelier, again, I started my own Som on Call, which is another avenue, which is not a traditional one. But I think we really need small, other non-traditional ways to get the wines to people. And with terms of Kumusha wine, it's been a beast. I'm really fortunate and privileged that it's growing at the pace it is, and I really want to get the wines all over the world, especially up all the way in Africa. I've just started up in Kenya, very soon going to Ghana and Rwanda. So I think Africa is what excites me because that's where I'm rooted and that's where I connect easily.
I look forward in due course to sipping a glass of Kumusha at the Zimbabwe Hotel in Kwekwe or the Marandera Hotel on my next trip up north and other parts of the continent. Tinashe, congratulations. I think it was a really brave move to step away from a space you not only knew so well, but had proved so successful in. I think there's still the occasional tear that rolls down Luke's cheek when he remembers that you've bid him farewell. But this new adventure has been a huge success. And not only are you clearly having fun with it, but also making some terrific wine, obviously in partnership with some very talented winemakers. Reginald Pecler back with us from Sabi Sands from Cheetah Plains. Shamwari, what an incredible wine journey. Look into as our recent time alchemist. Thanks for bringing back that magic. Kumusha, proud of you. Ina Smith, all the best for your future journey, Tinashe. We've had a number of Shannon collaborations, including as a judge for the Shannon Challenge. Hopefully we can work on a few projects in future too. And Ngonim Tizwa, saying good going, Tinashe. So plenty of fans out there. Famba Jwakanaka, best of luck with 2021. Look forward to some wine with you in person soon now that you're up in Johannesburg and a little closer to each other. And a big thank you for joining us this evening. Much appreciated.
No, awesome. Thanks, Dan, and always appreciate your support.
There we go. Tinashe Nyamudoka, who is sommelier extraordinaire, but also now a winemaker extraordinaire, giving us some terrific wine. And that wraps us up for this evening as we bid Tinashe farewell. And we also say a big thank you to our guest sommelier from the Grendel. A big thank you to Morgan and to Righard, who joined us there as well. One last show for this year, and that'll be on Thursday evening, where we chat to a couple of people, amongst them Melu Lambert, the esteemed wine writer, and Miguel Chan, who's also one of our top sommeliers. A number of great wine voices will be giving me their best wines of 2020. Will there be some Kumusha? We'll find out. Daryl Balfour would certainly have some, saying, look forward to serving Kumusha in my camp in Kenya. Daryl, I think you and I need to do some adventures in 2021. Remember, if you're not part of it already, join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, amongst other great reasons. That huge Grendel competition running for this month, where you can win over 5,000 Rand worth of wine, and that will do you rather nicely for Christmas. One more this week. Thank you very much for joining us. Big thank you to the Grendel, and big thank you to the global CEO of Kumusha Wines, Mr. Tinashe Nyamudoka. And we'll see you again on Thursday evening. Keep supporting South African wine. Cheers.